Hi everybody, Think Differently Thursday again. We're in May, it's just incredible, but really lovely to still be doing this and chatting to people. I'm Helen and I've got Ali with me today. Hiya Ali.
Hi.
Are you okay today?
Yes, very well.
Good. Now I know you a little bit. I often say that to my guests, but it would be really just great if you just briefly introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Ali and I'm married to Peter and we have two children, Jack and Ellen, who for some reason have decided to emigrate to the Midlands and not stay in Suffolk. And obviously I'm involved in the forge in many areas, but we'll probably find out about that a bit later.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Pete, your husband, who's a farmer. So I just love it really that I can introduce you as a real life farmer's wife, which is very, very Suffolk, I think. And I guess you've been a farmer's wife for probably, I don't know, 30 odd years or so. Did you come from a farming background?
No, I didn't. Although I lived in a village called Crowfield, which is very rural and was surrounded by small farms, so aware of farming. But
Right.
no, my parents were not from a farming background. My grandparents were,
right.
but they were obviously retired time I was around.
Yeah. So you adopted a whole new role in like being a farmer's wife. Interesting. And I've kind of got this this very romantic notion about, I think I used to want to marry a farmer because I think I just thought that, you know, it was like picnics by the haystacks at harvest time and gathering the eggs. But I guess it's probably not really like that.
I'm afraid not. not my point of view. It's not. No. One, we don't have chickens, but I mean that's not the point. No, you kind of farming. Oh goodness. Well, obviously it's very much dependent on the weather. Yes. So your husband, my husband, is an arable farmer, whereas his brother, who he works with, is stock. So obviously that's a different connotation there. But so for Peter, like today, he got up before I was even aware that he'd got up and gone off to do spraying, because yesterday the wind wasn't in the right direction and he didn't achieve what he wanted to do, and he still hasn't come home. He's still out there trying to spray. Right. So you kind of, as a farmer's wife, you have to be quite independent. Right. And do your own thing, because your husband for many parts of the year is out there working long hours. And so if you're relying on a husband that is around for most parts of the day or the week, don't marry a farmer. No discredit to farmers in general. That's the reality of life, you know. And
also, the summer is a bit of a write-off as well, isn't it? Because of harvest, you can't really.
I would say Peter is busy for harvest from mid-July through to the end of August into September, and because obviously then drilling will start. So I kind of write him off until the end of October.
I don't even really know what drilling is, and people often say they're drilling. Is that when they're putting the seeds in?
Drilling. Yeah, that's when yes. So you make a seed bed first. You might hear ploughing, cultivating, and then they'll do drilling. Obviously the bigger farmers now have bigger equipment and they direct drill, so straight into the stubble. It's a whole world out there, I tell you that.
I tell you what I miss, and I understand why farmers can't do it anymore. And they used to burn the stubble fields. I used to love that. That used to be really exciting. You'd be driving along, well, as a child, I think, but I'd be in the car and you'd just be aware that they were just burning the stubble. I guess it's all too dangerous, decided now, is it?
Well, I think, and also it's because to do with the environment, it was stopped.
Okay.
EU and things. I think it was stopped early 80s, I think, or maybe late 70s, early 80s. I know it's
there might be people listening that have never seen the stubble burning, but of course it used to get out of control sometimes, didn't it? And then there'd be fires and
and fire is still a dread at harvest time when Peter's combining, he can see smoke on the horizon. His fear is it's a farmer's combine has gone up in smoke, because obviously when we've had these really hot summers these last few years, you get lots of dust in the combine, and you can imagine overheat. So you're constantly having to check your equipment the whole time, stop and just. But we have had a combine fire, so he knows, you know, what that is like. It's not nice.
Oh my goodness. The other thing I often think with farmers, and obviously I know several farmers and I do love them all, obviously I'll just say that, a little bit obsessed about rain, either too much or not enough.
Yeah, never happy with the weather. You just and being a farmer's wife, and I'm obviously not a very good farmer's wife because I often say the wrong thing.
Oh, it's a lovely sunny day. And it won't rain.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember many a time when the children were growing up, like, oh, it's a lovely day, it's sunny. And Peter would be like, I don't want the sun, I want the rain,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a bank holiday, it's wet. Oh, I've got the day off, he says it's wet. Where do we want to go on a wet day? That's the reality of farmers and weather.
And I know that in farming over the last few decades, it has been pretty stressful. And a lot of farmers have kind of diversified as well, haven't they? Kind of gone off on a different kind of path. Would you say has that been the same for you? Has it been a stressful kind of few years, decades, or has it picked up again now?
Yeah, everybody's stress is different, isn't it? Peter and his brother, who he works with, Simon, yes, they've had stressful times, and it's often due to weather, I would say, getting the crop in or not getting the crop in, because that's supporting families. It's our family income. If we don't get the crop in, there's no income. And obviously we've been in pigs as well, so they work together. So there's been times where like the pig price has dropped and you think, is it worth still doing it? Can we do it? But I think the biggest stress is, from what we all see, is DEFRA and all the red tape.
Okay.
Because there's so much paperwork, and it's just increased over these last few years.
Really?
I mean, last 10, 15 years, there's more and more. Everything has to be recorded. I mean, to the point that the moment Peter takes the sprayer out, he has to record what the wind temperature is, speed, what he's spraying, how many buffers are there, how much the chemical is, and we have to record all this. Well, I end up recording it all on a computer, which we get an inspection once a year where they come and check all that. Looking for anything we've done wrong. They check all the barns. Pete has to keep records of all when he's cleaned it, all the crop temperatures. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Really?
Yeah, that's without
a bit like the world now, isn't it? It's like teaching as well. I think everything's got to be recorded. You've got to evidence everything that you're doing, and people will check on your evidence and monitoring what's going on. I guess because Peter's dad farmed, didn't he? I guess it's a world away, isn't it, from what it was in those days?
And even, Peter and I have been married 34 years, and even in that time, it has changed so much. We were handwriting everything and doing accounts by hand and everything. Well, obviously, computers have come in, and now Peter and Simon have been farming for 40 years plus, and they're now got to an age near retirement, we'll say, where, like, do they want to spend thousands and thousands of money on GPS equipment that goes straight to a computer? But because actually they're thinking of retiring, and having contracts. So all these big farmers now are all into IT, GPS, and it records everything. And that's really what DEFRA and everybody wants. So they're the whole time they are aware of what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. So the machinery is kind of being monitored, and the information is going straight back. So they've got the data.
And all the fields are checked by satellite. They have these satellites and they can check. So it's all very technical and IT. And when you get to I say certain age, and I'm saying that about me, but you just think, oh, do I want to do this anymore?
Yeah. Is there a sadness in that? For Peter, has it taken the enjoyment of it away a bit, or is it?
Yes, it has. And I think that's what's made him and his brother have made that decision. We've got nobody coming into the farm from the younger generation. Right. So our children are not interested in taking the farm on. Simon's children are not interested. So about 5 years ago, a decision was made. Well, when we get to, they are 60 and 61, 2 sort of thing, we will start to downsize, and we will contract out. Because farming is a very physical job. The hours are long. But also, if we haven't got the next generation interested, and we haven't, do we want to spend
all that
hundreds
investment
of days on equipment and stuff, and so there's and it's a way of life. So it's a complete change of how you think, isn't it, as well? But
definitely, yeah.
We've got a lot of change happening. So
yeah. Oh, so you're thinking about a whole new next phase of life as well. That's interesting. Enough of farming, because I know you've had your own career as well. So what has work life been for you over the years?
Well, I started as do you remember the NNEB? So I trained as a nursery nurse, the old NNEB, and I sort of was a nanny for a little while, and then when I got married, I married quite young. I got married at 19. So
that sounds so young nowadays, doesn't it?
I know.
19 sounds so young.
I decided that, well, Peter and I decided that actually, before we had our own children, maybe nice for me to do a different job. So I actually got a job as an optician's receptionist at Ipswich.
Oh, okay.
And was there about a year and got another job in Bury in an optician's and trained up as an optical assistant, where I fitted contact lenses and did all the aftercare for that, which was quite exciting.
Yeah.
And did that really until I had Jack, actually. Yes, until I had Jack. Yeah. And then when I had the children, I went back to nursery nursing, but in a nursery, and helped a friend set up a nursery in Stowmarket. And while I was working there, a friend said to me, "There's a job going at the Ipswich Hospital. I think you'd do really well. Here's the application." And I was like, and I'm talking about days where you hand wrote the application. So anyway, Peter said, "Go for it. Just fill it in and have a go," which I did, and got an interview. Went to the interview thinking, never going to get this job because it's day nursery manager. I'm not, although I was doing an advanced diploma in childcare at the time, I thought, no, I haven't really got enough experience. So I was quite relaxed in the interview. Right. Answering questions without any thought, as in, it doesn't matter what I say because I'm not going to get this job. So I was quite blunt about a lot of things that if they asked me, what do you think could be improved? I told them. And they said, "Thank you very much. We'll speak to you in 3 weeks because we've got a lot more applicants to do." Fine. I went back to the nursery I was working at, doing it, phone rang, Ipswich Hospital. She said, "You got a phone call offering me the job." Wow. And then I found myself saying, "Yeah, okay, I'll So I became day nursery manager, and then obviously while I was saying all this to them on the phone, thinking, "Oh, got childcare to sort out. Can't start till after the Easter holidays." But yeah, Peter was really supportive. Said, "Just try it." He said, "Try it for 6 months. If you don't like it or it doesn't work out, we've lost nothing." He said, "But this is your chance," sort of thing. Yeah. So I was there nearly 13 years. Wow. And I think that's probably when I first knew you. I think that's the job you were doing at that stage. Yes, because Jack would have been, I reckon, I'm just trying to think how old the children were. I think they were 6 and 4. Yeah. They were that sort of age range. So it was a quick case of finding childcare or people mother-in-law was very good. She helped, with big runs and things. But a whole new world opened up, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that job. I took the nursery from a 42-place nursery up to a 100-place nursery. Wow. Flexible working for the nurses, and booking. And I did a holiday club as well, so I got a lot of funding for that. And just absolutely loved it, and did loads of other roles up there as well in HR. And it was a lovely job. I really enjoyed it. They're the best ones, aren't they? The ones where you actually just loving what you're doing day after day. So great. Yeah. So you're not doing that now, are you? Are you still working? Are you doing stuff for Peter on the farm now? Yes, I seem to be busy. So, I left work because unfortunately I lost my dad and my brother from cancer within about 15 months of each other. So there came a point the children were then doing GCSEs and ASs or A levels. And Peter and I, it felt right. It felt right for me to leave. Yeah. I left the nursery in a good place, and then I was able to spend time with the children, while they're vulnerable time there, but also to help my mum because she'd lost her dad, her husband, and her son. Yeah. And so we kind of, I guess I had a transition period where for about a year after leaving work, I still felt I was getting up and was getting ready to go to work, because when
it's a big change, isn't it? It's quite hard mentally, I think, to stop. Yeah.
So I would start for 2 mornings a week. I'd start at 7 at the nursery, right. and 2 other days I'd finish at sort of 6:30, and do shift different ends of the day. But so I was always one of those that was always thinking ahead. What am I doing tomorrow? What have I got planned? Very kind of structured, shall we say? Who's got their packed lunches ready? What are the children doing? Where are
military operation? I know.
And I expect, like you, if you were, I'd get home, be home half an hour, and I'd be out the door again, taking one of the children somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
My car was my best friend. I lived in that car.
So do you do like admin stuff for the farm now?
Yes, I do. Anything on the computer. My husband, can you just? So I do the online banking. Pete will do most of the accounts, and then I finish them off and send the VAT away, spray records, right. A lot of admin stuff and paperwork. So
busy. Sounds really busy.
Go on. It goes, but then you have to be flexible in farming, because often the phone will go and they'll say, "What are you doing? Anything?" And I go, "Depends what you mean doing. Need someone to come and pick us up, because we've got to get to the other farm and move machinery around." So there's a lot of,
on hand.
A lot of things like that happen here. Or can you go and pick up a bag of seed from Earl Stonham? It's all it's very variable.
Never 2 days the same by the sounds of it. And so you're busy. Sounds like you're really busy, and I know you're busy with church as well. You're an important part of our church, and in fact you have a role, don't you, as one of our elders, which doesn't mean that you're older than everyone else. How would you define that role? What does it involve for you, being an elder?
So I guess the first thing is that we meet as a team, we support one another, and we're there to support Steve, the church leader. That's his, that's Steve's safe place, shall we say. We're there to listen and hear, and that's really important. The official bio is that we have the oversight, the spiritual health of the church. We have the oversight of that, which sounds very grand, doesn't it? But I think at the end of the day, we are behind the scenes. We're there to support Steve. We're there to support you as staff. We're strategically thinking always ahead to where the church is going. We're usually working a year ahead. But in lockdown, I'd say we're probably sometimes working a month in advance, sometimes even a couple of weeks in advance. So it's been quite different. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite different. And then obviously each of us as elders have an oversight of a specific area of the church. So for me, I chair a small team called compliance.
Right.
Which is the joyous things of health and safety.
Okay.
We look at insurance for the church, so we look at GDPR, we look at your training, we travel insurance for people, their risk assessments, safeguarding vulnerable adults, so it's all that kind of anything to do with compliance that needs to be thought about and we mustn't miss. Charity commission, auditors, annual reports. It's really not everybody's cup of tea, shall we say?
But it just makes me realise that there is just so much, isn't there, behind the scenes that has to be thought about and dealt with and processed. So it's you do a brilliant role. You really, really do. As you say, that lockdown has just changed the way so many things are happening, and it has for you, particularly that whole kind of looking ahead all the time. I am super proud of our church. I think we adapted. I think we were very agile. I think we changed where we needed to. I think we embraced lockdown. Didn't kind of feel like we just got to get through this. I think we really kind of felt like, okay, how do we do this well? And I think, every week delivered something online with the Sunday service, but midweek content as well. I'm proud of how we've managed it. How have you guys kind of felt as elders, if you reflect back on that it's more than a year now, isn't it? How have you felt as elders?
I think yeah, I think our overriding thing when we've looked back is, wow, what a fantastic staff team we've got, because you guys deliver the operational week to week online programs during the week. You know, we are just super proud that we have a team that have been flexible and adaptable, like you say. And we hope as elders that we've been able to be as flexible and adaptable to support you in those roles, because sometimes it's literally been a conversation, as you probably know. Oh, the rules have changed next week. What are we going to do? How are we going to get the worship team to be able to still, you know, and all these different little things, but they evolve into something quite large, don't they? We've still got to deliver a good content. We've still got to be aware of our congregation, which obviously we haven't been able to see. I think very, very aware that there are people who are perhaps not happy with online, you know, watching things online. So hoping that we can still support them in a different way. As elders, we are behind the scenes, we are strategic, but we hope that we are, I don't know what the word to use, but I think when there's a need, we hope that we can come to the forefront and support and help. That's our whole role, is to support you guys who are operational and hands-on to deliver whatever program it is you've decided to go for. You know, we're very much read something, go, yes, Steve, that's great. Tell the staff we're so proud. You know, we really want them to go for this. And other times, Steve will come with something and go, actually, we're not sure if that's quite going to be the right way to go, and try and come up with alternatives. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're there as a support and a sounding board. I think is what we're there for.
It has definitely been, like you say, about like doing things differently. It's been such an exciting time, I think, for me. And I think I look back on it and think, if I had been told or asked to do all those things that I then found myself doing, I think I would have just thought, oh, I just don't know if I can. I don't know how to. I haven't got the technological know-how, and it was out of my comfort zone. But actually, it's been a very exciting time to live through, and a great staff team to be part of, that I just feel have like really enabled me and encouraged me, and supported me in all the changes, as have the elders, which has been just brilliant. It's another sort of time now, isn't it? We're looking at coming back together in person, and it's another transition, I think. What do you think are the biggest challenges that face our church now?
Well, I think coming back as a community is going to be great for those that are confident to come back. Yeah. It's going to be exciting for those that want that big encounter feeling. You know, that getting together as a big church. Obviously, there's lots of things, as we know, behind the scenes that need to happen to enable that big church experience. But I guess the biggest concern is those that perhaps are anxious and can't or don't want to come back to a big church, or big church experience, shall we say. And also maybe online still not quite their thing. And it's how do we ensure that we don't miss those people? And I know we've got great things in place. We've got Keep in Touch. We've got people communicating with people who live far away from Devon. And we're putting things in place to communicate, but it's still, what about the ones that aren't in groups still, aren't going to be coming to church, aren't part of some other form of serving activity? You know, there's always people that slip through the loops, and they're the ones that we really don't want to think that they've sort of floated away, really, isn't it? And they've disappeared.
Absolutely.
I can't quite, there's something there, isn't there, that we're all very aware of as elders and staff, and we're trying to communicate with as many people as we can. But yes, my fear is that there'll be some that just have disappeared, or perhaps lost their faith slightly and need that bit of encouragement. But it's not going to be the same as it was, and that's the other thing, isn't it? It's going to be another change for the community and the congregation, and it's communicating that change in a way that people understand the why, isn't it?
And I think for a lot of people, I think even they don't quite know how they feel about it. I think people are just kind of like beginning to put their toe in the water and like, not sure what they're going to feel about coming back in person and what it's going to be like, how safe they're going to feel. I think, people are unsure themselves. So it's all those unknowns that are quite hard to navigate, isn't it?
Yes, and we all wait, don't we? We all wait for Boris's next announcement, and is it going to be what we think it is, or is there going to be some little change that we haven't sort of thought about ourselves?
Absolutely. So many unknowns. Has church always been something that's been part of life for you? Is it something that you've is it an environment you've grown up in?
Yes, well, mum always went to church, and as children, my brother and I went with her because that's what happened, you know. My dad just went usually at Christmas and Easter.
Okay.
You know, the classics of it. So church has always been part of my life. Right. I wouldn't say I had a deep faith when I look back. I can see the difference now from when I was, baptized to when I was a child growing up as a teenager. So I went to church. It was very much Church of England, small church, very nice. But we sat in the pews. We answered the questions that were asked. We weren't given much choice. Sunday school started when I was about 8, I think, from what I can remember. They started, and so did that, and then got involved in Sunday school. When I was about 11, I think they asked if I'd do a little under 5s class. And I remember doing it around the font at Stonham Askell Church because Stonham and Crowfield shared. But I've always kind of been involved. Got confirmed when I was 13, but honestly, I can't remember anybody asking me what my faith was. It was a process,
So you're just going through the kind of expected stages. Okay.
And I'm not saying I didn't like church. No. I can't say, but I was just doing the motions. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
do you remember a time where you would say that is a point where I kind of made that decision for myself, where I kind of thought, no, I definitely want to choose this life. I want to be a Christian. Or do you feel it's something that you were part of the environment and you grew into that personal faith?
Yeah. Well, I would say, what should I say? How can I say? So up to about the age of 18, I was still doing Sunday school, bell ringing, doing all the things, the classic things.
Bell ringing?
Yeah.
Yeah, bell ringing.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah. That was through D&E, Duke of Edinburgh's award.
Okay.
But I would say for some reason, I can't tell you, I can't pinpoint it, but I kind of drifted away from church. Of actually going to a service. Yeah. It's a very gradual thing when I look back. But what happened was when I had Jack was in the car, my son in the back seat.
Yeah.
Helen was in that thing. I'm driving along, and my son says to me, "What's a God?" That was his word. What's a God? Because we'd been to Roy and Prissa's 40th wedding anniversary party, and the MCF, as it was then, that they went to, had done a Sunday service. The next day was a Sunday service for them.
I think I actually remember it. I remember it.
Well, I remember saying to Peter, it just shows, doesn't it? I said, this church is putting on a thing for your parents. None of your brothers, because there's 4 of them, nobody's going. We have to go and support them, and be there. I was quite adamant about it. I don't know what made me think that, but Ellen was only 6 weeks old at the time, so I must have, God was obviously pushing something in me.
And
so
at that stage, would church not have been featuring in your life? Okay.
No, exactly. So I wasn't going to any church service, and Peter wasn't a Christian at that point either. So he went, okay, then we'll go, we'll do. So obviously, we had this, and I went up, I think I had a couple of other encounters or something along the way. Anyway, Jack said this to me. How I didn't crash the car, I don't know, because I suddenly realised that as a parent, I had been so remiss that I hadn't told my son about God or Jesus, or he had, thinking of the upbringing I'd had. Okay. So there was this moment of absolute, I was mortified. That's how I felt. I was mortified that he didn't know anything about Christianity. I got home, I took them out of the car, got them all sorted, and I was on the phone to my mother saying, Mum, and I told her about it, and I just said, I can't believe that I have not done, not said to Jack or read him any Christian stories, so big change happened there. We got books about it, and then I started to go to MCF on a Saturday morning on my own with the children, and that was the process. Peter came sometimes, and basically we ended up, after a year, we ended up doing Alpha, and that is when I know that my faith, I knew what faith meant, shall we put it like that. It wasn't rote, it was a true decision, and I got baptised at Sizewell. And
that's amazing.
So
you'd had this whole and you'd had this whole background, and so I guess you'd gained a lot of knowledge and understanding. And it was a point at which it became something personal for you.
It was a relationship, and realizing that it came from the heart rather than the head knowledge. We talk about that a lot, don't we? Head and heart. And I guess no fault of, I'm not saying any fault of where I went to church as a child or anything. It was just, that was the way they did things. But the questions on Alpha are just superb, because it gives you an opportunity, doesn't it, to talk things through and make those decisions. And I remember instantly thinking, yes, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to say to God. I need to make that prayer. And and it was just a real blinding moment that finally I understand what it means to have a relationship with God.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. And a really great advert for Alpha. Really good.
That's because Peter became a Christian a year later after Alpha as well. So.
That's amazing. I'm also really thinking that it's such a good thing to have parties at church, because that's what got you along in the first place.
Well, there you go.
So I love that story, and I think I knew it, but I had not remembered it.
I think you were one of the first people to come and chat to me, because we had children similar age. I remember you introducing yourself, and I remember going to yours for coffee. That's how I remember,
Right, fab. I don't remember, but that's lovely. So I just love that in a sense you'd begun married life, but Christianity was not featuring heavily in that at all, and then you'd become a Christian, and Pete became a Christian a little while afterwards. And so how would you say that, and we've talked about them, haven't we? We've talked about farming and your career. How would you say then that being a Christian has impacted on life for you? Because you're talking about moving it from that head knowledge to heart knowledge. So how does that impact life?
So I guess for me, in the role when I became the manager at the day nursery up at the hospital, I very much wanted to. There are certain things that you have to do as a manager, and they're not always nice, are they? But I guess I wanted to treat the staff as I would want to be treated. That was one of my real things, I also, if I had things to say to a member of staff, I always remember saying to them quietly, can I just have a word when you're free? And I would do it privately. I would never berate anybody over the fence or down the corridor or anything like that. I was very aware of, things that, I guess I tried to, my other thing was that I wanted to empower the staff. So I went, the staff were great, they did their job, but none of them were taking responsibility. And I wanted to empower that so I could see them grow. And so, I wanted them to take responsibility of the rooms that they were in and things like that. And I just felt my faith. I just always thought, what would Jesus do here? It's easy, isn't it, to lose your temper and shout at somebody? And that sounds awful in a nursery, but it's a very stressful environment up in the hospital, and you could see lots of things happening. And I tried not to be that. I didn't want to be that type of person. But the other aspect is whenever I had lots of change to put in place and big staff meetings to do, I laugh about this a lot. I used to go into the staff toilet, lock the door, and sit on the toilet and pray. you know, just like, Lord help me please, I've got to deliver this and I know they're going to hate it, you know, sort of thing. But oh gosh, many a time I went into that toilet and locked the door.
That's brilliant. I heard of someone recently who is finding time with God by going into, there's no time in the place where she works, so she just goes into the lift that nobody uses and just spends some time with God there, and nobody quite knows that's where she is, and just for a couple of minutes. I think it's brilliant. I mean, that's great. So that's like really not separating like faith, Christianity, God to one part of life and then work to another, but just really trying to bring him into all parts of your life. I've been teaching about Christianity in a year 2 class this last week or so, and we're talking about people that trust Jesus, people that follow Jesus. And of course, we've looked at lots of Bible stories, but I really wanted them to understand that this is what people still do now. So I asked one of my friends who's a Christian and works in school to come and talk to them. And one boy asked a really great question. He said, why do you trust in Jesus when bad things happen? And this boy is like 7 years old. And me and Linda looked at each other and thought, it's a great question. Why do people trust Jesus when bad things happen? And I'm just wondering if, and you, I don't know, but you talked about having lost your dad and your brother, and that's hard stuff. I'm just wondering if faith has always been a steady thing for you, or whether you have at any time just felt like you wanted to give up on it.
No, I've never had a time where I've given up on it. Yes, there are points probably where I could say I drift. No, I'm not drifted. I was in a dark place. You know, I felt quite away, and that was a time when I had ME when I was working full time, obviously, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but I kept getting these throat infections and laryngitis and was getting very tired, to the point that one day I couldn't get out of bed, basically. Wow. And yeah, it resulted in having a year off. So during that year, as you can imagine, having an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old probably, and Peter working on the farm and that, and I couldn't really, if I could get out of bed, that was a good day, you know. It was, so I never lost my faith, but I certainly didn't feel I could communicate or pray that well with him, you know. And I remember a talk by Trevor Waldock. He's talking about seasons, you know, you go through seasons, and I was definitely in the winter season where, you know, everything was quite sort of, where is this going? But I never lost my faith. I never ever blamed God or said, you know, this is your fault, God, or anything. I had people praying for me. I knew he was there, but I couldn't pray myself at that time. And I'm saying that now because I think it's good to hear, because I remember Trevor talking about this and thinking, oh, that's me, you know. And it was so refreshing to hear, because we always hear about people saying, oh, I pray and do this, you know, talk to God and have all the time. And when you're in a situation of vulnerability and your life is, I say your life has been taken away from you, but I couldn't work, I couldn't look after my children, I couldn't even cook, I could do very, very little. You have to rely on your faith. That's where your faith comes in, that you know there will be something. And the biggest lesson I learned in that year of doing nothing, shall we say, when I look back, is that I always tried to look, it didn't happen to begin with, I'm not saying that happened, but at the end, I always tried to look at what I could do and not what I can't do. So, and I was very task orientated as a person. I was very much, my diary was full. I knew exactly what was happening. Everybody had their times to be at places, and to have that all taken away and not being in control of anything of even what we ate. I wasn't even in control of what we ate as a family. You know, and it took me a long time, a very long time, to start that mental process of actually, now what can you do? You've got out of bed today, so that's great, you know. And then the next steps, and they're very small steps, that helps so much. So yeah, faith was so important at that. And the same as you said, when I lost my dad and my brother, it was faith that has kept my mum and I sane, shall we say? You know, the grief is just as bad, the loss is just as bad, but with faith, you know that you can get through it. Even if you don't know how at the time, you know that faith is always going to be there. And you've got people supporting you and praying for you, which is such a,
and I think that's often what God uses as well, isn't it? The people that he places around us to kind of lift us and hold us at the times where we, as you say, just don't seem to be able to do so much of it ourselves. Oh, that's just really real of you to talk about that. Definitely. You've talked about your kids, Jack and Ellen, a little bit, and I think you're just slightly ahead of me on the parenting. I think both of them are just a year older than my two. I think I've remembered that right. And so they definitely have flown the nest, haven't they? Yours have gone. Mine just keep returning, coming and going. But I absolutely love having grown-up children. Tell us what yours are up to now. You said that they'd gone to the Midlands. What are they up to?
Well, Jack got married last year, actually, in lockdown, so that was wonderful. But yeah, Jack went to Coventry at the age of 18 and hasn't come back. He's moved slightly. I'm not sure. I'm not very good with geography, but anyway, he's moved to Warwick, so I know that Warwick and Coventry are fairly near each other. But yeah, no, Jack was at Nexus and very much part of the worship team in his church up there, and leads worship actually in his church. Music's a great passion for Jack and loves it. But he's actually a postman by day. What he does at the moment, because he's actually been doing a history degree through Open University. So he's been managing the both. He's about to be finished, I think, end of May, beginning of June. So in the hope that he will get a different job.
Good for him. Brilliant.
So he's a busy lad. He keeps us.
Fab. And what's Ellen up to?
Well, Ellen, I'm afraid I see little signs that I think she might be a bit more like me. She's not as laid back as Jack. Ellen went to Nottingham University and did German and music because she couldn't decide, so she did both, as she did. But actually, after a year in Germany, she spent a year in Germany in Bosch, doing in HR. That is now what she's working for British Car Auctions, I think, and is in a HR department, and is just finishing her CIPD, which is your HR qualification. She's done it for about 14 months and has got a promotion already and working her way up already. Eleanor's works about 5 years ahead. Jack works about 5 months if you're lucky. They're so different, I tell you, they're poles apart.
We won't say it's a stereotypical girl and boy thing. We won't say that. We can't say that publicly.
They are both happy. I mean, Jack is happily married and we're really proud. Jack and Hannah, lovely. And Ellen is engaged to John and she'll get married next year. So we're actually, it's lovely.
Yeah, that is really lovely. And I know people will be listening and not only just pleased to hear about you, but hear about your kids as well. That is really, lovely to hear about them and that they're happy and doing so well. So so they're gone. So what's next for you? You've kind of like half hinted at retirement being like around the corner and the farm going. So, what's next in life for you guys?
Well, I think reality check here. Yes, they're going to retire from farming, but they'll never stop actually, because even though we're having contractors coming, we've still got to do various jobs, But no, it will take the pressure off of. So our children live in the Midlands. It'd be nice to be able to just go and see them rather than thinking we can't see them because Peter's got a spray or he's got to do jobs, So that will our free time will be more so that we can actually plan things rather than so we'll be able to plan in more visits and to see them. But I think Peter and I like traveling. We have done a lot of traveling. We've been very, very lucky. And we've traveled with the children from a very young age. So we've done lots of lovely holidays. But we would like to be able to go on holiday and not think, we can only go in the winter months because Peter doesn't know when the spraying is going to happen. All this. I keep going on about spraying, but spraying is the curse of the farmer's wife.
It's going to open up a whole new world for you of when you can go on holiday.
it means we could actually go on holiday in September. We've never been on holiday in September in our lives. Exciting.
So where would you go? What would be your ultimate dream holiday? If you could pick one, this could be our last question, we could wrap up with this. If you could, like, absolute dream holiday, and I know you've done some nice holidays, but
I know I've been very lucky. Well,
so of the ones you've done, or like looking ahead to something you haven't done, what would be the absolute dream?
I think Peter and I would very much like to be able to go on safari again. We did safari before we had our children. That was our last holiday before we had children. We went on a safari and we absolutely loved it.
Where did you do that?
We did that in Kenya.
Nice.
2 weeks in Kenya. It was fantastic. We saw every animal possible. And I think what we would like is the opportunity to be able to do that again, but also he'd like to travel from country to country and see. Yeah, that would be his absolute ideal, to be able to take 2 or 3 months off. I know that sounds, but and be able to travel and not come home, go again, and actually once he's out, keep traveling.
Because the longer you're away, the more you relax, don't you? Yes. I think you would just slip into it. Yeah. So would that be like African kind of exploration?
He things like Botswana. I know, and in other countries, and I just go, whatever.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
I tend to do all the organisation, but he tends to pick the countries. It's
okay.
He has that. He'll do all the research, and then I go and do all the, talking to the.
This sounds like I think he's got quite a good deal here. He comes up with the ideas. I'd like to go here and do this, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, I tell you, we've done lots of holidays like that. And his classic is, I hope it's a good hotel after I've booked it all. And I kind of go, really? Usually a little bit last minute, so it's whatever I can get,
Oh, well, it does sound exciting. And yes, I hope that all that comes true and you get some lovely holidays in the future.
Whenever we can travel again, whenever we can travel again.
Yeah. Oh, Ali, it's been really, really nice to chat to you and just hear about what you're up to and the kids and the plans for the future, and just to find out a bit more. And you've been really honest, and it's been lovely. I'm sure lots of people will really appreciate hearing lots of your stories. So thank you. Thanks for your time this afternoon. I know you're busy, but it's been absolutely lovely to catch up with you. So thanks so much. And hopefully I've seen you on screen a lot, but I hope I'll see you in person before too long.
Yes, can't wait.
Thanks for joining me. See ya.
Bye.